Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. We've got a great show lined up for you today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Benny, how are you today?
Good.
And
well,
David,
Pat,
how are you guys doing? Look, we've got a really, first of all, what I want to say is this is a show with Sabina. This is a show that reminds us of our true nature. And in the world we live in today, we get so bogged down by just the everyday things. And so have we created this paradox with intimacy and sex? Have we done that? What is the full circle of love? Of course, that is something Sabina Rademacher does so often for so many people, helps us explore, understand, innovate, and change how we are with each other. But what if we can't even see it? I mean, what if that we go through our day, we know we are in a relationship, a love relationship with someone. We know that we've done things to support that. And then we have forgotten. We have totally forgotten that part of us being together is so special, so sacred, so intimate that time goes by and we don't even understand that we have forgotten that. Today, what happens when the most beautiful parts of us seem to be lost or forgotten or removed or dismissed, whatever you want to call it? But that's what Sabina is going to talk about. Sabina, it's great to have you here.
Oh, hello. Good morning, Dr. Pat. It's lovely to be here with you. And I'm excited about talking about this subject, which is dear to my heart.
I want to talk about it for a couple of reasons. One is that I'm like our listeners. I've been in relationships and I've been exactly where we are and what we're talking about today. But what has led us to this deep intimacy place, this place where all of us want to remember, but what has led us here and then has disconnected us from it, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like moments of our lives, we remember how close we are to people. And then it's like we're here and then we're here.
Unfortunately, yes, Dr. Pat. And there's a lot of reasons. Where shall I start? But the sadness is that really that we have that intimacy has become a paradox. So we hardly know, we don't realize anymore when it's happening or what is happening. And that's very sad because inside of us, we all long for these deeper connections, for the longer relationships, deeper connections and longer relationships in all aspects. But I'm referring especially now to the intimate ones. And how have we lost it? Well, you just said it, we're so longing, but we're longing probably out of still the fantasy, the movie, the children's book, the fairy tale story. And we have never been taught what love really is. Yeah.
I think you nailed it. I mean, we have, whenever we are presented with a version of this, let's say, what do I mean? Let's talk about our pop culture. And let me just generalize for a minute. And I don't mean in the United States, I mean across the board. Whether it is your favorite magazine that you pick up and you subscribe to, or whether it is a movie that you think is all about love, or something else. We jump into this place where we see it through the eyes of other people. And I just wonder if we believe that we too could have that, or if we honestly believe that it's just for them.
Well, I believe both is happening. First of all, we all want it, and then we most of us sabotage love. You know, we have spoken about this last time in the last show. And if somebody wants to know more about it, they can refer back to our interview and also to some of my courses. But where I want to go specifically today into that, we have not been taught what love really is. So we kind of believe whenever we get together, the other one will understand what I need. Yeah. So first of all, we have no understanding what love really looks like and what it means. We don't take responsibility for it. So we don't really investigate what is my needs, what I'm looking for, what is my wishes, how does my body feel? What do I like especially? And then we're so shy to really communicate. We're fearful of communicating what we really want. So it's this kind of imagination that the other one can see through us in our crystal ball up here, and they know exactly how to make us happy and to fulfill our most important sex life. And that's not true, because we are so different people coming together, finding each other. And yes, of course, it's all, as you said in the beginning, it's really sticky. You know, we kind of clinch together and it's all rosy and it's hot sex. And then suddenly what happens? But it has explanations also in how we fulfill our time nowadays and our needs. So first of all, in this busyness of our life, 24/7, 365, we don't really make love as a special thing anymore. We don't make a date in a diary for love, do we?
No. And yet we are really at this place where, look, many people probably don't remember the exact movie that I'm going to reference, right? But many people remember the scene with Meg Ryan.
Hmm.
Harry Met Sally. And for all of you folks that have seen it, great. For all of you folks that, probably a little bit younger, maybe Jessica's generation, you're like, what? Who met Sally? Sally? Harry Met Sally. And everybody remembers the scene in the movie in the restaurant where Meg Ryan is clearly eating something, is describing or going through what she describes as how a fake orgasm sounds. And I believe it was that, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
see, she was proving a point. And she goes through this because why are we talking about that? Why? Because we're in a performance driven, a
Yes,
sexually performance driven
yes,
culture from time to time.
yes.
Um, and then, of course, at the end of that scene, one of the other restaurant people says, I'm going to have whatever she has. Um,
It is so perfect, Dr. Pat, that you say that, because literally I was walking through Barcelona downtown asking all young women if they ever have faked an orgasm. And the answer was, yes, of course. Like they would look at me and say, like, yes, of course. And I was asking them, so what is the reason you're doing it? And the reason were mostly the same ones is, well, how do you tell him he's not doing it well enough? Or how do you stop it because I'm actually done and I don't want any more? And I was asking the question, but how come that you don't say the truth? Because you probably would help him to understand there's something not working. And on the other side, I was interviewing the men. Nobody was believing that one woman would have ever faked an orgasm to him. So isn't that sad to see where we got to? And we got to into this first very, like you said, just high performance society. So we have to show off all the time. We have to prove ourselves. Yeah, there's a lot of, due to internet, there's a lot of misunderstanding of the concept what sex and intimacy should look like. I was teaching in schools We were going into schools for 8-year-old people, 8-year boys and girls. And guess what? They already were in porn, because nowadays the access to internet via mobile phone or whatever is easy. And it's very sad because young people, women and girls and boys, they get the understanding of that is what we're gonna do, because nobody's talking about it. Sex is everywhere, but it's still such a taboo. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
The,
yeah, Dr. Kelly has a great book that she put out and really addressing, she talks about the sex part. She doesn't talk about the love part that you're talking about, so much. But here's the thing I want to talk about with this. And here's my question. Yes, the internet is available, right? I can't tell you how many parents over time have called me because all of a sudden the FBI has showed up on their doorstep, right? They're like, because somebody in the house accidentally went to a site that they shouldn't have gone. But where is this coming from, Sabina? Where is this coming from? You know, I grew up with a stepmom. Fortunately, I guess I didn't realize how fortunate I was that I mean, first and foremost, we had three girls, right? And then my sister, four girls. And so this is a woman that said, I had my first child at 12. I had my second one at 13. You girls, you ain't going to do that. So, so we had way more information at a time where there wasn't internet. Are we not talking about it enough? Are we talking about it too much? What do you think is at the core of this? I mean, what is stopping the natural evolution of intimacy, conscious intimacy, as you call it?
yes. Well, conscious intimacy means actually we do need to know what love is and how conscious intimacy can look like, because it is existing. But we don't have love schools. Unfortunately, there's no love schools out there who teach us what love looks like, or intimacy could look like. I'm not saying that we have to say it's only valid if we have deep intimacy. No, of course we can have wild nights and all kinds of craziness, but the long lasting deep connection comes from the hormone oxytocin, and it's also called the cuddling. If you have ever heard about the cuddling hormone, and that only established between two people when they really take time and connection, and they know how to connect each other by looking into the eyes. They can connect to their body. They have they have consciousness, and they take responsibility how they connect to each other. They know what means giving and receiving, not just waiting of what's happening. They talk to each other. They have communication. So this is one thing which is very important. But we have sex everywhere, and nobody is really talking about the topic. It's still a taboo. So since it's everywhere, of course our youngsters become really curious. They can grab it in any magazine, right?
Yeah.
They can grab it, they see it in any movie if they're allowed to, or secretly look at. And then of course they have the ability to porn, but they also learn through peers. And the peers or the friends, because most of the young kids, they don't go to their parents or schools because they're not. And I wonder why not. It's why do parents still struggle so much to talk to their children about love and sexuality? The
It's
best
really a
age.
dilemma. Sabina, it's such a dilemma. I want to ask you about this because you are teaching. And I want to
Mm,
make sure people know that the conversation today is really drawn from these feelings people have of emptiness and loneliness. And how did somebody describe it to me not too long ago? I did a call with the gentleman several days ago. This feeling of nothingness. That was the word, nothingness. And your work really is that body of work, full circle of love, that body of work, which enables people to share everything they're feeling, whether it's empty, right? Whether it's unwhole. I mean, whatever that is, right? It eliminates the denial so that people can get to the movement of things, right? Isn't
Mhm.
that part of what you do, and you help people with?
That's
Um,
absolutely right, Dr. Pat. Thank you for pointing it out. There's different workshops I'm giving. So there is, of course, the workshop for parents, which I'm actually holding on the 8th of November again, which is a dialogue. It's literally for parents and children. The best age, what I just wanted to say, it's between 8 and 14. Actually, ideally between 8 and 12, because most of the time on 14, they don't want to speak with their parents anymore about the subject. And then, of course, I have workshops and coaching for couples, like Conscious Love, where they can really learn how to connect to their own body, to themselves, to each other, to understand what love and intimacy looks like. And it's based on a lot of exercises as well. So it can be an individual couple coaching, but it can also be in a workshop, which I present online. And one of my biggest projects, I think we have spoken about this once when we had a private conversation, is my project Sex Yes and I Wanted Love. Um, this is something I really want to reach out for, because I feel there's so many women, but also nowadays, especially young men, they really long for deeper connections. They long for vulnerability. They long for sharing. And they want to know how to make love in a different way, how to be intimate in a different way. So Sex Yes and I Wanted Love is about sharing the 5 keys, which I call the 5 magic keys to know when we do lovemaking. And just recently, I had a coachee, a young man who was suffering. He was so desperate of not being able to have relationships, intimate relationships with women, because of this pressure of needing to perform, this pressure which is so deep in every one of us, that we have to be the good lover. And he was so afraid, and so it affected his erection. I mean, he's not the only one. There's more and more people, young people, affecting the pressure. So he was actually saying he was preferring to go to men because they wouldn't ask. It was just easier. And because he was addicted to porn since he was age 12, he had the easy way of just masturbating, but he has never learned how to be with a woman, and then to learn about the communication part, where you actually speak about your likes, your dislikes, your needs and desires. And I helped him see that. I also showed him, there's one fantastic TED Talk in YouTube from Gary Wilson's called The Great Porn Experiment. I recommend anybody to watch it if somebody's addicted. Because porn and sex has become an addiction like alcohol, coffee, racing cars, whatsoever, that just fulfill our need for dopamine, the dopamine hormone, which is just like a fast high and release. But it leaves us empty, and then we just want more. It's not giving us what we really long for.
Yeah. Sabina, I just have a question that came in. We have
Right.
so many ways now we get information, and apparently this is our new experimental texting device, which we haven't announced yet, so I'm not quite sure how they got it. But it's a really good question. Hi, Dr. Pat. Hi, Sabina. This is fascinating. Would you ask Sabina about same-sex couples, please? Everybody abbreviates, so you're going to have to bear with me as I try to translate the abbreviations. Okay. And this is Margaret. I think it's Marge or Margaret. um, Most people talk about heterosexual couples and the fact that they may need help, but did you know that perhaps same-sex couples may be in the same, oh, this is cute, maybe in the same sex Harry met, oh, I got it. Could be in the same sex Harrietta met Sally movie and have the same problems. Yes, totally agree with you. Let's see what Sabina has to say. Yeah, because you're not just talking about heterosexual couples here. And you're
No.
right, we don't talk enough about people in love. Let me just say people in love like that. This is not a one size fits all, or this is not for this group. This thing about intimacy, and by the way, I'm still getting typing in here. Okay, do you want me to read that? Give me a minute and I'll get back to your message. Very good point. She's still going. By the way, porn isn't just for heterosexual couples. It's an issue across the board. Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely, Margaret.
You
Thank
don't
you for
make
putting
a discernment between same sex
No, I
versus
don't.
no.
Not
This
at
is
all.
everybody.
Yes.
Great question,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes. It's unfortunately everybody. And thank you for pointing this out, Margaret. Yeah, thank you for texting that. And yes, I know there is the issues as well. Maybe you still have, to be honest, they come maybe less to me at this moment of time. I have more heterosexual people,
Yeah.
but I have family who is in the same sex relationship, and I do know what's happening there too, and they have the same pathways to grow together. Otherwise, they experience the same frustrations. And of course, I mean, we're just human beings, and we're two different human beings. Doesn't matter which gender, to try to bring us together in deep, long relationships. If you want that, some people say they don't want any of that, and the other is like, I have a friends couple. They're both female, and the one wants deep intimacy and the other one doesn't care. So if you come already together, for me it's always important to say, in a couple, when they come together, make sure you understand your values.
Wow.
If you don't have the same values,
right,
different, it's like different to get you on the same level. We have to find something which unites us. Is it a shared vision? Is it some shared values? And the interpretation of the values is very important too, because of course I can have, for example, the same value of, yes, I want deep intimacy, and then it looks completely different in your eyes than in my eyes. Some people want to have a lot of different partners, and this also, by the way, it's a big subject, and a lot of doubts come with all this stuff of intimacy. Like, what shall I be? Polygon, monogam? Shall I be whatever? I mean, there's so many free love. There's so many options nowadays, and it just confuses us even more, especially when we have no idea about what love really is.
Yeah, Margaret's still typing, and I'll talk about that when we come back. But one of the things that you're also doing is, look, I can't speak for the people out there, but I'm just saying that if you are intimate with someone and you have an expectation about what that might be like, feel like, and it isn't, the aftermath of that could be very traumatic for people. And we don't really think about that. And what I mean by that is, feeling empty after something that maybe your friends don't feel empty after lovemaking. Maybe that's not it. But what do you do? I want to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, is everyone really talking about sex, or did the 60s get it right? We're going to take a short break, but before we do, Sabina, what is the best way for people to find out about your workshops? And we'll talk more about it when we get back. How do they find out about what you're actually doing, how they can work with you? What's the best way to do that?
All social media like Facebook, Instagram, and my website. That is the best way to contact me. So it's www.sabinarademacher.com. And I hope you write this somewhere, because I know my name is very difficult, that people say, what Rademacher? How do you spell that? So I hope you bring something up where people can see it, and you find all my events, all my workshops.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sabina Rademacher.
Yeah. And for those of you that are watching on Facebook or getting it on YouTube or Spreaker, David has got all that information right up there for you. When we come back, we're going to talk a bit more about making time and space for love, what that's really about. But more importantly, does everyone talk about sex? Do we really do that? Is that something that happens or not? We'll be right back. Welcome back. Full Circle of Love with Sabina Rademacher joining me here today. It's Rademacher. And if you're wondering, and it's Sabina. If you're wondering how to find this, certainly if you go to our video version of this conversation, you'll be able to see what David's putting up on the screen. Thank you, David, for everything. Thank you, Benny. We've just, during our commercial break, we just shared with you a personal message from Sabina, so you've seen that. We also want to make you aware of, we're not just talking about this. We have events. Sabina is part of several of these events, and making time and space for love, making peace within, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and love and sex, a dialogue for parents and children about the most important subject of our lives, right? And, these are important in today's world in ways that we're not going to get to talk about today, not all of it. The point, though, is it is very important. And one of my friends who does teach in the Midwest says that, they're changing what can even be talked about here in the United States. So it's a compounded dilemma. But the thing that is so important, and I would love for you to touch upon it, is sex in movies, sex in commercials, sex in Super Bowl stuff, sex everywhere, sex on magazine covers, you name it, still not really talking about it. It is not the 60s. If you grew up in the 60s, yeah, people were like really talking about it back then. How do we get here? How did it become so taboo?
I don't know what the 60s have been looking like because I wasn't involved in them.
I know, I'll talk to you offline.
But I do
I'll just
know.
give you a slight preview of Woodstock. You want to join me?
Yes, I of course I have seen movies, I have heard, and I have done research. But what I wanted to say is there was a lot of liberation as well. And I think it was also needed, it was definitely needed. So it was like a breaking free and openness. And there was a lot of good intentions, but it was also, which still happens because there's still some communities that try to look at how we can live in free love, and sometimes it's confused in just having sex. And I'm not talking about just having sex. Of course, it's totally legitimate and fine if you want it, and there's nothing in contrary also to experience intimate, conscious intimacy, sacred intimacy, which I call it as well, because it's much more conscious and it helps us to develop this deep trust and this deeper connection which we all long for. So this pure sex and the taboo is a lot of expectations, since we don't really know what love is or what deep intimacy is. As we said, nobody really tells us, nobody really shows us, nobody really kind of offers us information about it. So we have all these pictures we get hit nonstop in our head, and that creates a lot of expectations. And it's really interesting because when I do my workshop, Making Time and Space for Love, couples sometimes really struggle to look each other into their eyes for longer than a second. Or we struggle anyway to look somebody into the eyes. And it's actually the connection to the deep soul, right? So if we struggle, and I say then in this workshop, well, how do you make love? I mean, hello, most of us close our eyes and we go straight into some fantasy world, some pictures, some images. I call it let the whole movie run to get an orgasm, because that's, of course, the goal. Yeah, it's like this performance-driven intimacy we have. And what has that to do with the person we're actually with? I mean, do I feel what the other feels? Do I understand what's going on if I have my eyes closed and just go for my movie and just try to get on the orgasm? And then everything is over. And what do you feel afterwards? Empty.
I think empty is the tip of the iceberg. It's what people express. But underneath it, and this is what I want to talk with you about too, is underneath it can bring forward feelings, post-traumatic feelings in a sense, of abandonment, of misunderstanding, right? Emptiness is one word, but underneath it, there are all these other emotions. And
Yes.
if they are not talked about and discussed, it really puts up a dividing wall, right? It's like, boom, instant dividing wall, which turns into an instant resentment that if it doesn't get addressed or understood, it gets carried forward. And I don't think we quite realize that impact. Is that what you see?
Absolutely. You nailed it. It is fear of intimacy. It can even come out of this. It's the fear of being together with somebody because they feel so much anxiety to be with somebody. Then they feel the pressure, they feel like they're not understood. They don't know how to. Yeah, it's so sad to see that people withdraw then, or they feel like they're not. Most women, when they're married for longer than in a long relationship, and by the way, I want to say I'm in my third time partnership, so it's not talking about only the young people.
Yep. Marge, that's for you.
Yeah, so thank you, Marge, for pointing this out. So it's not about at all for young people, just actually the opposite. Yes, I have interviewed the young people because they're easy to interview and they're really kind of open with it. And the ones we have been in long relationship, we kind of feel like almost withdrawing, that we give up on the relationship. We feel like we give up on the intimacy part. I have definitely given up because I thought, well, maybe it's not for me. Maybe in this lifetime I'm not achieving what I always felt like I wanted, but did I really know what I wanted? So I had to really go deep into myself and search what I really wanted for myself and how it would look like. And then, of course, it's learning to communicate what I really wish and want for. And that's a whole new step. And then, of course, practicing some beautiful exercises between couples, which are really the giver and the receiver, the surrendering, to allow the surrender and the vulnerability within the intimacy part. This is all part of deeper intimacy. Sex is far too hot and too rushed. It's solving the dopamine levels, but it's definitely not getting us to feeling like the oxytocin hormones, to feel in the state of bliss for days, which can actually happen. I have experienced it. And it's possible when we understand how this may feel like, when we really in touch with our bodies and not here, when we just be in presence with what is, what I feel, and not how it must look like. And I have to come, I have to come, I have to come. This is the obsession which brings us into the mind. And then, of course, we don't want to have intimacy anymore.
It's one of these things I want to talk to you about. This is the way you're describing this. It reminds me of something that Carolyn Mace used to talk about a lot. She used to talk about cellular memory, and she used to say it's a tissue issue. And what that means is that the difference between intimacy that you described and sex, right, the way you described as well, the difference between them is one of them infiltrates our bodies, our soul, and our emotions at a level where we start to understand a deeper meaning about that person. We start to see, feel, and there is this closeness that happens that you can't describe, right?
Absolutely. And there is a fantastic book from Michael and Diana Richardson. I don't know how well known they are in America, but they actually wrote a book called Slow Sex, even though they didn't like the title. That said, the publisher wanted to put down Slow Sex. But it's about the deeper intimacy, the deep understanding. And and to actually make love every day, because the body needs it. Actually, love making is necessary for women's health, especially. So if we women feel like, oh, no, we don't want it because it's not fulfilling us, or whatever the reason is, we have to address that. We have to look what's happening.
Yeah, I want to take a short break. And we're also during the break, for those of you watching us on social media, Facebook, wherever it's live streaming, Spreaker, YouTube, you're going to have a lot of information. When we come back, we're going to make sure you know how to get a hold of Sabina, as well as really look at her workshops. When we come back, we're going to ask the question, how do I confess that our sex life is not what I thought of? And what I mean by that is, how do I say those words at a time and a place that it doesn't come out like you, that one? That's not going to be very helpful. But how do you get it at a time? How do you learn this? When we come back, we're going to talk about Consciousness Love School, and we're going to be talking about how to bring up the conversation, even if it's a tough one. You know, and my friends tell me sometimes, and the people in the School of Psychology say that this is even a harder conversation for couples, especially couples been together, than to talk about the money. I don't know. I got to think about that a minute. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Sabina Rademacher. I'm a love and relationship coach. And do you understand the power of full circle of love, which is based on self-love, conscious relating, and sacred intimacy, by looking at presence, commitment, and authenticity, the pathways to full circle of love. This is my work, and you can find me under www.sabinarademacher.com. I got a tip for you today. Find something to fall in love about him, her, them, it, and yourself. And do this once a day and speak it aloud. You will be surprised how quickly it transforms your entire life. This is my work. I'm Sabina Rademacher, a love and relationship coach.
Hey, thank you, everyone. It's so great to have all of you tuning us in and turning us on. I'm just telling you, really excited about where we are, what we're doing. And I'm especially excited to have experts like Sabina Rademacher joining us here today, that really has been helping people understand the many, many layers of love, the many, many layers of intimacy, the many, many layers of addiction. That we are now, I don't know that we're seeing an increase in the world we live in. We are seeing access to. And so, because we have access to the internet, we are seeing things happen in ways we have not seen before, whether that's with porn, whether that's, you know, with connections to other people that you are not in a relation, emotional intimacy with people outside of your man. I mean, I could go on, but I don't want to. I want to get to Sabina. Once again, tell folks what you're out there teaching, how they can be part of it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes, my remit of teaching and coaching is mostly to love in all aspects. So the full circle of love is based on self-love. It's conscious relating and sacred intimacy. And that always is through the pathways of presence, commitment, and authenticity. We can't walk that path without. So the love is either you have individual coaching on self-love, you may have couple coaching, or you may have workshops. In workshops, there are kind of variety. They're either for parents and their children to talk about the most important subject of our life, which is sexuality. And they still struggle, most parents still struggle to talk with their children about it. It is making time and space for love, which is such an important workshop, which I have given for the last 3 years now, to really make time and space for love. So if you want to change something in our relationships with anybody, not only the partnership, we need to make time for it consciously. I mean, hello, yes, it's not just eating dinner in front of the TV. We need to set a diary, need to set time in the diary for making time and space for love. It's vital. And it's the same for lovemaking. People look at me like, making a date in a diary for lovemaking? Yes, because otherwise it's not going to happen. And if it happens, it's like this rushed emotional sex performing, this orgasm performing act we have to perform. And then it's not what we actually long for. It's just a short-lived satisfaction of dopamine levels, nothing else. Yeah.
And we are living in a time right now. I mean, when I talk to our listeners out there and they email me or they call me and they're asking me questions about how do I find the balance of things today, my answer is always the same. I don't really know how to achieve balance. I do know how to achieve harmony in my life. I do know how to have a day where maybe I'm spending most of my day working, but harmony is that thing that allows these other pleasures in. And if we continue to put love and intimacy at the bottom, like the very bottom, because people do this, Sabina, it goes like right to the bottom. It really does.
Fortunately, it's very sad, yes.
Yeah, until it gets to a breaking point, and then it's like, what's going on? We have to really honor this because there is a long-term, a short-term, and an immediate benefit. I want to talk about this a little bit more, and I want to talk about this idea of conscious love because this is also what you teach. But the long-term effect of emptiness and abandonment, this is something we can change now.
You can change now, you said?
Yes, we can change.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, but you need some courage for it, some will and some intention. And of course, if the relationship has not created that trust, and you have been together for the last 10 years and has become a pattern and habit of connecting to each other, then it takes the will and the focus of both of you to say, okay, let's look at this. We do want to make something happen here. We live in this society where we just change partners as we buy shoes. I don't know. It become an easy way. Just, okay, don't serve me anymore. I just go somewhere else. And then we repeat the same patterns because we haven't learned anything. So I really invite all of you, it doesn't matter if you live in the same couple, in the same gender relationships, or in heterosexual, or you have the first time or the second or the third or the fourth, it doesn't matter. It's really important that we learn something because the real growth of love comes only through a partnership. It really challenges us, yes, it triggers us, yes, but we have the incredible possibility of really big growth. Like, for example, if a couple, like one told me he's afraid to tell his wife or his partner, it doesn't matter, that he's looking porn, and because he's not happy with the sex life. I mean, hello. And I said, well, what are you doing here? You're living in a lie. And energetically, she may feel that. It can, of course, be the other way around, but it doesn't matter. It was like this. So I invited him to become vulnerable and honest. But that's why I'm saying full circle of love is based on authenticity. We need to learn about being authentic and true to ourselves and live in that integrity, because otherwise we're just living in these lies and we make our whole relationship a lie.
I want to say one thing here, and I know our time is short. The thing I want to say and I want to ask you about, and I'm sure we will get to it in another conversation, is one of the things I had to learn about changes that I've had to make to myself in life, whether they be love, relationship changes, it doesn't matter, work. When I look at my past and believe that whatever I did in my past, on whatever day I did it, is going to have some kind of control over what I do today and tomorrow. And so when it comes to love and intimacy, there really isn't a past that we have to reference. You can start with a clean canvas and learn this one step at a time. And I think that's the hardest part for people that have been in relationships that maybe weren't great, and they are, wow, I'm never going to be able to get this. I mean, this is the blank canvas that you help people create the masterpiece of love, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for pointing this out. And this is one of the most important points, that we have the ability to create that white canvas every single day, to let go of the ego, because ego wants always to be right, and ego wants to protect. I don't want to feel hurt again, like this has happened in the past. And that's just going on this acting out of this hamster wheel, I'm calling, from the past. And that's, by the way, this is, I will speak about more in my workshop with Hawkwood College, Making Peace Within, about exactly that subject. But what I want to say is, like, the big question where we can create a white canvas every single day in a relationship is, and I ask myself that, what would love do now?
That's the great way to end this show. Sabina, thank you so much for today and all that you do. Again, let folks know how they can work with you directly. And people don't realize that you don't need to have yourself and your couple come. They can call you directly, right? That's an important thing we forgot to mention. So
Absolutely.
how do people reach you? How do they work with you?
So you can find me on my own website, www.sabinarademacher.com. You can find me on Facebook, Coach Sabina Rademacher, and Instagram, same name, Coach Sabina Rademacher. There's workshops for individuals. There is couple workshops. There is the dialogue for parents and children about sex. There is individual coaching. There is couple coaching. There's workshops, which is my next project called Sex, Yes, and I Wanted Love, which really teaches us to be the 5 magic keys for more intimate loving. And don't forget to make really time and space for love, which is also one of my favorite workshops, which I give regularly. So I hope that this is inspiring and people like to come and to really get ready. Are you ready to create a deeper relationship with your partner? So that is something, of course, you can only ask yourself.
I love it. Sabina, thank you so much. David, thank you for doing what you do. Benny, thank you for being Benny. And for all of you, Marge, tell your mom, I know you heard something here today. All of you out there, please, please make time and space for love. I'm Dr. Pat. We'll see you next time.